I have never played a fast-paced cyber ninja action game before. Did Ghostrunner by One More Level Games set the bar for me in a good way? Let's find out, shall we? You are a Ghostrunner, an enhanced cyber ninja and the remaining guardian of the last bastion for life in the world, Dharma Tower. After being wounded by the Keymaker, leader of a coup that has taken over the tower, you are tasked with taking her down so order can be restored. The story isn't the main focus in this game, but I found it compelling enough that I wanted to see it through to the end. Most of it is presented through voiceover while you dash and slice your way up the tower. There is an AI companion that feeds you information, as well as other characters that move the story along. They're performed well, and while I could see some of the beats of the story coming from a mile away, I still enjoyed how they played out in the finale. This game's controls are tight. It felt smooth the whole way through, whether you were sliding, dashing, or wall running to get where you need to go. The fact that they are fully rebindable makes it even better if your preferences aren't quite met by the default on your mouse and keyboard or even controller. The main gameplay loop here is interesting: parkour, combat, and cyber void puzzles. For the parkour, you use wall running, sliding, and dashing to get around obstacles and areas. Some of these paths are really interesting to traverse, due to some really cool level design. This is made more interesting with the sensory boost, which by holding down a button, you'll enter a slow motion with a timed meter, giving you the chance to dash in midair and change trajectory, an absolutely essential ability in both traversal and combat, and really fun to use. Encounters with the enemy are the meat of the game. You'll die a lot, but respawning is instant, so no downtime, but each time you will get a bit further or come up with another approach to the scenario. When you start to think of them more like puzzles with multiple ways to solve them, they become great exercises in problem solving, action, and making you feel like an absolute cyber ninja badass. The enemies through the game are lacking a bit in variety to start with, but as they introduce the different types over time, and other such elements like shield generators, it keeps things fresh and interesting, just as you might have felt things get samey over time. A bit less frequent, in between the parkour and combat encounters, are the cyber void segments. These are usually puzzle and platforming segments in a cyberspace environment that add more to the story, change up the pacing a bit, and can be a welcome rest from all the action. As the Ghostrunner, you will gain certain abilities as you progress through the game, such as being able to slice through a line of enemies at once and blasting apart foes by pushing out your palm Jedi Force Push style. Accompanying the learned abilities are timed power-ups, ones that can slow time down. Throwing Super Ninja Stars and such were a neat addition to the puzzle-like nature of the encounters. The game has two additional modes of play: Kill Run, which is a time attack course where you're trying to complete a course in the time allowed, picking up time extensions along the way and taking out foes. Then there is the Wave mode, where in the Cyber Void you face waves of enemies, and between them, you get to choose power-up cards to mix up the game and your abilities. These modes make for great post-game content, and I definitely see myself returning to them now and then. The visuals are going for that grimy, neon Blade Runner style look, and it nails it pretty well. Since the whole game is set within this massive tower, you won't see much variation as in other Cyberpunk titles, but the game isn't long enough for the different areas to get really dull. What I did notice right away when starting the game for the first time was the lighting. With ray tracing on, this game is gorgeous. The neon signs really pop, and in later parts of the game where the billboards are all lit up in the city space and share the same area, the mix of lighting makes for really interesting combinations of colour. There are also collectible skins for the gloves and sword you wield. It's a nice touch, and the different colours and lighting of the swords were really kick-ass. didn't unlock anywhere near all of them, but the ones I got all were unique and awesome in their own way. So, the first thing you will notice when you boot up the game is it knows the kind of music it wants you to identify it with. It's going for an electronic synthwave style soundtrack, and it really does the job nicely. Naturally, being a cyberpunk themed game, it fits the look and feel of the environment as it helps immerse you in its setting. As for the sound design in general, your sword has a great weight to the hits and slices against your opponents. When deflecting projectiles, you really feel the impact as it adds heft to the hit back on your enemy. However, I found the shots from enemies themselves lacked the same punch when they were coming toward you. The environmental sounds and ambience were quite fitting. Hearing the Ghostrunner's footsteps on different types of surfaces, the sounds muffling and becoming less intense when you use your sensory boost ability to slow things down and dash. Things like that really tied the whole game's sound design together really neatly. Lastly, the voice acting in this game was surprisingly good, despite it not being the main focus. The 4 characters you hear from narratively are all solid performances.
Now, let's take a look inside. This may feel a little strange.
The standout one for me being the AI that's assisting you. This game has quite a few accessibility options, as well as the option to turn off the gore. Except it only seems to remove the blood that splatters on the ground and on your screen. Enemies still get cut in half. Seems odd to leave that in despite the option, but worth noting. The other options are great and affect the gameplay in a wide variety of ways. When you choose Assist mode, it gives you the option to slow down the gameplay, add 1 extra life per encounter so it takes 2 hits to kill you, and shorter cooldowns for your activated abilities. I see these as nothing but positives for those with disabilities making fast-paced games more difficult, or even just for those that want an easier way to play, and that is always a positive when included in a game. It harms no one, and it benefits others. Good job. When playing the game, during a couple-hour session, it crashed on me with an error screen. Apparently it has some issues with DirectX 12 and ray tracing, so be wary. It did only happen once during my playthrough, but it is a known issue. Outside of that, despite a couple instances of things clipping through things and whatnot, I got stuck in place a couple of times, which I guess is inevitable with such a fast-paced game with really a lot of movement options, but I did have to force a restart of an area when it happened. Luckily the game does checkpoint often. Here's some pros and cons I feel are really worth mentioning. For the pros, the game is fast and rewards creative solutions to its encounters. There are collectibles for the completionists out there, swords, gloves, audio logs, etc. The bosses in the game, few that they are, make for special encounters. The game is very generous with its checkpoints. The game has some cool Easter eggs and nods if you know what to look for. And completing an encounter after trying it multiple times can make you feel like an absolute badass. And here are the cons. The level design is awesome, but some really don't make sense in regards to the world building itself. The collectible audio logs can't play while you're playing, you have to sit in a menu and just listen. While generous with checkpoints, if you quit the game, you are restarting that level from the start, which can be a pain. And lastly, I found the very final parkour challenge an absolute pain. I had to actually take a break, it was frustrating me a bit. I haven't had a game challenge me in the way that Ghostrunner did. It set an incredible tone, challenge, atmosphere, and made you feel like an absolute badass when you were done with an encounter. They set a high bar for the next Cyber Ninja action game I ever end up playing, and if they ever make a sequel, I really look forward to it. I give this a huge thumbs up. I'm keen to give the wave and time attack modes more of a go, just like I'm keen for you to hit the subscribe button, comment below and let me know what you think, and give the like button a slice as well. I'm gonna get back to doing more Cyber Ninja stuff. See you later.